Today we're going to fix one of the most common problems beginners run into when learning Linux, SSH keys. Maybe you've seen an error like permission denied public key, or maybe SSH just refuses to connect even though everything looks correct. The good news is that most SSH key problems come down to just a few simple things, and once you know where to look, they're very easy to fix. In this video, I'm going to walk through a simple step-by-step process you can use to troubleshoot SSH key authentication. If you'd like to follow along, I've included a link to Linode in the video description. Now let's move to the terminal and start with the first thing to check. Before we troubleshoot anything complicated, we want to confirm that a key actually exists on our system. SSH keys normally live inside a hidden directory in our home folder called .ssh. So if we were to ls.ssh, you should see something like this above. Here we can see two important files, the private key and the public key. The private key stays on your computer. The public key is copied to the server you want to access. When SSH connects, the server checks if your public key is authorized. If it is, the server will let you in without a password. In an IT environment, this is how engineers log into Linux servers without typing passwords. It's also how automation tools like Ansible, CI pipelines, and deployment systems authenticate securely. If the key file doesn't exist here, SSH key authentication cannot work. Now, if you don't have a .ssh directory and you haven't created key pairs before, Linux has a built-in tool called ssh-keygen that can generate this key pair for you. So if you run the command as is, you're going to see this is a simple output where it says where it's going to save the key file at, and by default it's going to be underneath your user. You press enter to accept the default location. For me, it's going to warn me that there's already a key pair there, so let me close out. And I'm going to remove .ssh. And so now let me run the keygen command all by itself. Again, it's going to show me the default location. We're going to press enter to accept it. It's going to ask if you want to do a passphrase. Now, a passphrase is like adding a password that only you know to your key pair. Now that's beyond the scope of today's video, so to keep things simple, we're going to press enter for no passphrase. It's going to ask you twice, and then it's going to create this random art image showing that it's finished. So now you should have two files. You should have a private key that's always going to stay in your machine, and you're going to have a public key that you can copy over to another server. So if you're setting up a new laptop for engineering work, this is one of the first things you do. You generate a key once, then distribute the public key to servers you manage. So now we need to place the public key on a server. The easiest way to do that is to use the ssh-copy-id command. And then you enter in your username for the server that you want to copy the key to, along with either the server DNS name or the IP address of the server. I'm going to put the IP address of the server, and then press enter. And you should have output similar to this. That's going to say, are you sure you want to connect? You'll type in yes if it's the first time. It's going to ask for your password on that server. And then you should have an output saying number of keys added, showing that the keys have been added to the machine. So when a new engineer joins the team, their public key gets added to the servers they need access to. That allows them to log in securely without a password. So now that we've copied the SSH key over, we can test the connection by simply doing SSH user at the server IP, and if we connect instantly without being asked for a password, successfully logged in by using just our SSH key. And so now on the server that we copied our SSH key to, if we ls-l the .ssh directory, you're going to see an authorized key file. That is where our public key was copied to on this server. So if we were to cat this, that is your public key from the server that we copied it from. So the server checked this public key and confirmed that it matched the server it was coming from. And it proved our identity for us without having to use password. So let me go back to the first server. Now let's say that it had failed to connect. The next step would be to use Verbose Mode when it's SSHing in. And you simply use the same SSH command as before. This time we put a -v in front of it. And what you're going to see is you're going to see everything that's going on in the background. If you want to scroll back up, you'll see where it went through all the different key types that are available and look to see if it had a matching public key on the server itself. And eventually you should see one that matches, and we came in. Or you may see permission denied because of public key if there wasn't a match. And because Verbose Mode shows exactly what's going on in the background during SSH, it can help identify any type of errors that are going on. Professional Linux administrators almost always troubleshoot SSH problems using Verbose Mode because it removes a lot of guesswork by showing what is actually happening in the background. Now this is the most common SSH key problem. SSH requires strict permissions on key files. So let's check the permissions on our SSH directory. And we do that by simply doing ls-la for .ssh. And you should see something similar to this. The private key must only be readable by your user. If the permissions are too open, SSH will refuse the key. So if you ever have to correct the permissions, a good rule of thumb is chmod 700, the SSH directory itself, chmod 600, your private key, chmod 644, your public key. And what this does, it gives you read, write, and execute permission on the SSH directory, and it gives just you read, write permission to the private key, and it gives you read, write, and everybody else read access to the public key. So now the server you're connecting to can read the public key. So if a developer copies their SSH keys from another machine or backup, permissions will often become incorrect, and fixing permissions immediately can resolve that problem. So now we check the server side. Log in using a password if necessary to check the authorized key file. And we're going to cat SSH authorized key, and you should see something like this depending on the key type that you used. The public key must appear in this file. If it does not exist, the server cannot authenticate you. This file is often managed centrally in organizations. Configuration tools automatically add or remove keys for engineers or programmers. 3 very common beginner mistakes are, first of all, using the wrong user. If you're connecting using the wrong username, SSH checks the wrong home directory. So for example, if I was SSHing to this machine using the name Amber, when the key belongs to Bo, it's going to ask for a password, and I'm going to get permission denied because this person doesn't actually exist on the server. So always verify that you're using the correct user. Mistake number 2 is incorrect permissions. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a situation where there were bad permissions on the private key. If you ever come across something like that, simply use chmod to fix it. And the 3rd mistake is copying the wrong key. Only the public key goes on the server. Never copy your private key. That file should never be shared. The file that can be shared ends in pub for public. And to give you an example of the difference between the 2 keys, now you should never cat your private key publicly. I'm only doing this because right after this video is filmed, all this is going to be erased. But if your private key ever gets out and gets public, you need to recreate your SSH keys because it is no longer valid. But this is just so that you can see what a private key looks like. Now your private key will always begin with a header that says private key, and it will always end in a header saying private key. And that's what a SSH private key looks like. Now to compare it, here's your public key. As you can see, it's a lot different. It starts with the type of encryption that's being used, and then it always ends with your username and the server name. Now that's the default. You can add other stuff to this as well, which is beyond the scope of this video, but this is what by default it looks like. Now let's walk through a scenario you might encounter in an IT role. You have a developer that can't access a production server. They report this error, permission denied public key. Here's the troubleshooting workflow we would follow. First, we test the connection using Verbose Mode. So ssh-v dev at server. We confirm the key being offered. In this case, neither one of these servers exists, so we're going to see this error message. In the real world, once you confirm that it's using the right key or not, you would then look at the permissions on the key by doing ls-la.ssh and make sure that, again, the private key is only readable by the user, and the public key, the user can read write, everybody else can only read. If everything looks correct locally, you as the IT administrator will log into the server and then change user to root. And then as root, you can switch users to the person having trouble logging in and cat their SSH file and make sure that authorized keys has their public key in it. And usually the issue becomes obvious at this point with one of these steps. This simple workflow solves the majority of SSH key problems that you're going to encounter. And once you're comfortable with SSH keys, a useful next step is to use an SSH agent. An SSH agent stores your key in memory so you don't have to enter the passphrase repeatedly if you use passphrase. And I don't have one set up on the server, so let me switch over to my personal machine to show you what I'm talking about. And so all I have to do is type in SSHB for SSH-BO, and it activates my agent and it tells it which key file I want it to store for me, because I use passkeys with all my SSH keys. But that's beyond the scope of this video today. SSH keys can feel confusing the first time you run into an issue, but most problems come down to just a few things. The key exists, the permissions are correct, and the public key is on the server. Work through this process a few times and it will start to feel natural. If this video was helpful, please leave a comment below and let me know.